Alright y'all, let's talk about Peacemaker Season 2. This season, while not perfect, is an emotional roller coaster. It takes everything James Gunn built in the Suicide Squad and Season 1 and pushes it deeper. More trauma, more heart, more chaos. But even with its flaws, and there are a couple, this show still proves one thing. John Cena as Peacemaker isn't a gimmick anymore. He's the real deal. So let's break down what worked, what didn't, and what this season means for DCU in the long run. Now, before we get started, major spoilers ahead. So if you haven't finished it yet, come back to this video later. Let's get into it.
Like this, subscribe, like this video.
Let's start with the obvious. John Cena is Peacemaker. Before this show, I never thought I'd say that. In most of his old roles, you could never forget you were watching John Cena, the wrestler. It was hard to detach his iconic wrestling gimmick to whatever role he was taking up at the time. But not here. In Season 2, he disappears into the role completely. There's this incredible balance of pain and humor in how he plays it. You can feel the guilt still haunting him after killing his dad last season. That scene where he visits his dad's grave and actually breaks down, that's one of Cena's best acting moments. You can tell Gunn and Cena trust each other. They built a character who's ridiculous and tragic at the same time. A man who wants peace but doesn't know what peace feels like. And for once, you stop seeing John Cena and start seeing Christopher Smith. Harcourt continues to be one of the best supporting characters on the show. She's not just the tough woman on the team stereotype. Her character is pretty layered. She's broken, cautious, but loyal. Her chemistry with Peacemaker feels real, not forced. What solidified that for me was episode 6, but we'll get to that later in the video. James Gunn deserves credit for how he's building the DCU, starting with the Suicide Squad and continuing with Peacemaker Season 1 before leading into Superman, then Peacemaker Season 2. It's smart. We get a Lex Luthor cameo, Justice Gang cameo, and they even retconned the end of Season 1 to include the Justice Gang instead of the Justice League from the DCEU. I'm happy that they didn't just put these characters in for nothing, but gave them some purpose to the story, even though I have a critique on Lex Luthor. More on that later. Now let's talk about episodes 6 and 7, because this is where the show stops playing around and turns everything on its head. In episode 6, Ignorance is Chris. This one kicks off with the 11th Street kids using the quantum unfolding chamber to jump into Earth 2 to reach Chris. At first, it feels like they found a better world. His family mansion is spotless, Keith Smith is alive, even Augie Smith, the racist, psychotic father, seems like a reformed man. But the longer they stay, the more twisted it gets. This perfect world isn't peaceful, it's authoritarian. Everyone smiles, everyone obeys, and everything feels off. Meanwhile, Rick Flag Sr. figures out what's going on and starts chasing the team through the multiverse. That tension builds hard. It's like Gunn takes Peacemaker's childhood trauma and weaponizes it against him. Economos also gets caught by Augie and reveals that his Peacemaker killed their Peacemaker. When Harcourt reaches Argus, she gets detained due to the narcotic dogs barking at the fact that she had cocaine all over her clothes due to the stockpile Vigilante had in his room, blowing all over the place when the portal opened. Chris sees Harcourt and finally has a heart-to-heart where she explains to him that she's too dangerous to be loved by anyone due to how messed up in the head she is. As Harcourt gets released, they walk through Argus and she realizes that there are no other races other than white in the universe. Then comes the plot twist. Chris realizes this better version of his life is actually Nazi America, a universe which Nazis won the Second World War. Then in episode 7, like a Keith in the night, Chris and Harcourt find themselves trapped on Earth 2, trying to fight their way out of this nightmare world. They are rescued by Keith and Augie. They confront Peacemaker and the team and realize that Augie isn't the same as the original. He disagrees with the world he lives in, but abides by their rules out of survival. Keith, however, calls Peacemaker a murderer. Then Vigilante comes along with his counterpart, murders Augie, and starts getting attacked by Argus and Keith. As Keith is about to get killed, Peacemaker yells at the group to stop and starts telling himself that he's the problem. The show doesn't even give you time to breathe. Gunn holds on Chris's face, that blank, broken stare, while Harcourt drags him out as everything burns behind them. The tone completely shifts from here. The comedy takes a back seat. This isn't the goofy, foul-mouthed team anymore. This is war, and it's personal. By the end of episode 7, they make it back, but the cost is huge. Chris knows now that peace isn't about control or killing, but it's about accountability. These episodes mark the transition from Peacemaker's trauma to Peacemaker's purpose. They're brutal, surreal, and emotional. Now, about that season finale. Yeah, it was a bit anticlimactic, I ain't gonna lie. The showdown with Rick Flag Sr. didn't have the impact it could've. It felt rushed, like Gunn wanted to save the big moments for Superman's movie instead of wrapping them up here. But it's also clear why. The whole point was to leave things unresolved. Rick Sr.'s fate, Lex's real plan, and that final Brainiac tease. It's all set up. The finale didn't end the story, it handed it off. And I'm okay with that. Because if this is the bridge between the Suicide Squad and Superman the Man of Tomorrow, it's doing its job pretty well. And if Brainiac really is the next big villain, that's perfect storytelling symmetry. He's the opposite of Peacemaker. Cold, logical, emotionless, exactly what Superman needs as his first major challenge in Gunn's world. Alright, now let's get into my problems with the season. Adebayo feels wasted. I like the idea of Adebayo as a character, but to be honest, I don't really care much for her character arc. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like filler. After outing Amanda Waller at the end of season 1, she should have had a massive storyline. But instead, she spends most of her time in the season acting like Peacemaker's therapist. Outside of comforting him, calling her mom once, and having problems in her relationship, she doesn't do much. Rick Flag Sr. wasn't menacing enough. When they first announced Rick Flag Sr., I thought he was going to be terrifying. A mix of military intelligence and personal vendetta. I like how he wanted revenge for his son's murder, but they didn't use that properly. He just felt like another bureaucrat with anger issues. He never felt like a menace. And to be honest, dude had no charisma. Langston Fleury and Sacha Bordeaux were pointless. Both of them had setup, but no payoff. Langston gets introduced as Argus' new strategist, but ends up getting shot halfway through the season. And some of his jokes weren't as good, like the bird blindness. It's lazy. Sacha Bordeaux, who comic fans know as one of Batman's allies, is reduced to a background soldier. They felt like filler characters whose only purpose was to move the plot. Eagly and Michael Rooker's character didn't work. Now look, I love Eagly, but that whole side plot with him being hunted by the Eagle Hunter, Red Saint Wild, was pointless. Eagly being the Prime Eagle had no business in this season. The whole thing is filler. The dialogue problem. Here's a big one. The writing. Almost every character in this season sounds like the same person. Everyone's constantly cussing, yelling, and cracking jokes. Even Lex Luthor. When your supposed genius, billionaire, sounds like he's auditioning for The Boys, like something's off. The edge loses meaning when everyone talks like that. Too much Guardian of the Galaxy energy. As much as I love Gunn's writing style, and I love the way these characters are written, but the similarities are getting hard to ignore. Peacemaker is Star-Lord. Harcourt is Gamora. Vigilante is Drax. Economos is Rocket. Adebayo is Mantis. And Eagly is Groot. Even Peacemaker and Harcourt's dynamic mirrors Star-Lord and Gamora's almost exactly. It's funny, sure, but it's too familiar. The DCU deserves to have its own distinct identity, not a reskinned version of Gunn's Marvel tone. Not enough action compared to season 1. Let's be real. Peacemaker season 1 was packed with insane, bloody, over-the-top action scenes. Every episode had at least one sequence that left you going, yo, what did I just watch? Season 2? Not so much. It trades chaos for character moments, which isn't bad. But when your first season set the bar with explosive fights and creative kills, scaling that back leaves a noticeable gap. The emotional beats hit, but sometimes you just want Peacemaker going full berserker again, and we didn't get enough of it. The finale hype did more harm than good. And finally, James Gunn oversold the finale. When you hype up the last episode for weeks, saying it'll change the DCU forever, you're setting expectations sky high. Not me, since I learned the lesson from Doctor Strange 2, but most fans will start getting high expectations. So when the finale drops, and it's good, but not great, the backlash is automatic. It wasn't a bad episode. It was just a lackluster episode. We got emotional closure, sure, but not that jaw-dropping holy shit moment everyone was waiting for. Gunn should have known that promising a universe-shifting ending without fully delivering would backfire, with fans who've been waiting years for this next DCU step. So yeah, Peacemaker Season 2 is flawed, but it's also real progress. It's more grounded, more emotional, and more focused than Season 1. It trims some of the wildness, but in exchange gives us deeper character moments and a glimpse into where the DCU is heading. And that's what makes it a step in the right direction, especially when you compare it to the old DCU. See, the DCU always tried to sprint before it learned to walk. It wanted to give us gods and icons, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, before it ever showed us the world that they lived in. It was always rushing toward a Justice League moment instead of earning it. Peacemaker, on the other hand, slows everything down. It focuses on character first, spectacle second. Instead of throwing a dozen heroes at us and hoping we care, Gunn gives us one broken man, his messed up friends, and lets us grow with them. That emotional investment is something DCEU never nailed, and now the DCU finally is. The old DCEU leaned into darkness and cynicism. It wanted to be the gritty alternative to Marvel. But Peacemaker Season 2 proves the DCU doesn't need to copy anyone. It can be violent, funny, tragic, and still hopeful all at once. That tonal balance, where heart meets chaos, is exactly what this universe needed. And for the first time, it feels like DC's storytelling has direction. No more disconnected tones, no more directors fighting for control, no more cameos that lead nowhere. Even though most of the fault goes on Warner Bros. Executives, Gunn's building something that actually connects. From the Suicide Squad to Peacemaker to Superman the Man of Tomorrow, that's world building done right. That's patience. If this really is the foundation of James Gunn's new universe, then we're in good hands. Because even with its rough edges, this season proves that DC's future doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. And this is a step in the right direction. Well, that's the end of the video. Do you agree or disagree? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Follow me on Instagram, X, and TikTok at TheBeaverX, and I'll see you in the next one.